Good morning. The webinar is beginning.
On behalf of Financial Brokerage and in conjunction with Western and Southern Insurance Agency, we welcome you to today's webinar. Recognizing your time is valuable, we bring you only relevant information and training that will help you be successful in your practice today and into the future. At the conclusion of today's webinar, we'll open the phone lines and offer a special Q&A segment. To get started, here's your presenter, and enjoy the webinar.
Well, good morning and welcome. My name is Leonard Berthelsen. I'm the Director of Health Market Products with Financial Brokerage, and today's webinar is Understanding the Basics of Disability Income Protection and the vital nature of what disability income itself is. So with that, I've got a few housekeeping things that I just want to cover real quick, and then we'll get started with the presentation. Each one of the agency managers was sent a sign-in roster. We would ask that that sign-in roster be completed by the conclusion of today's webinar and sent back to me. Instructions are at the bottom of the page on how to send that back. That gives us an opportunity to reach out to each one of the agents that participated in this webinar today so that we can go through the contracting process and appointment, making sure that you're legit and legal to present disability income products. And then second of all, it gives us the opportunity when we do reach out to answer any questions that you may have and also be able to answer questions that may have arisen as a result of the webinar itself. Also, I will be sending at the conclusion of today's webinar a copy of the PowerPoint that you're about to see. We also are recording this webinar, and a copy of that recording will be sent to the agency manager as well to be used in future training and also for a review for the folks that are attending today. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Why is protecting your income important, and does it really matter? And the answer to that is a very obvious yes and yes. Protecting a person's income is extremely important. Probably haven't given a great deal of thought to it, but let me give you just a couple of points that are easy when you're sitting down with a prospect, when you're looking at how the process works as far as disability income goes. Ask this very simple question of your prospect or your client, family member, friend, whatever the case may be. Ask them what is their most important asset. You'll be surprised at the answers that you get. Some of them may say it's their home, some may say their car, some may say the ring that they bought their the girlfriend or their wife. Those are all important. We understand that. But the really most important number one asset that a person has is their ability to continue to draw and earn an income. Because all of that other stuff that I just mentioned falls to the wayside, goes to naught, if you don't have an income to protect it. Everything that we do, day in and day out, derives solely from the fact that we have an income that we're going to be able to support all of these things. And does disability income protection really matter? You better believe it does, especially when you start looking at the elements that are out there, the number of people that have disability income, the number of employers that are scaling back when it comes to disability income, and just really the simplistic way that you can present and bring disability income to the table for your client. That's what the purpose of the webinar today is. Well, how long could you pay bills without an income? Ask your clients the same thing. How long could you go without having an income coming in every 2 weeks or every month or however the case may be? The bottom two numbers represent about 38% of the folks that were surveyed, indicating that less than 3 months and they'd be in a world of hurt. Statistics nationally show us that most people live paycheck to paycheck. We all kind of do in one form or another. The reality of it is that an awful lot of them are going to be broke in 90 days. If they don't have an income to continue to pay the obligations that they have, it becomes pretty critical, and it becomes pretty critical pretty quick. The top two numbers, the 27 and the 35, I think when you kind of peel that back a little bit and you look at what these people were actually thinking, these are folks that were going to access some assets that they had set aside for other reasons, such as a 1K, a 503B, an IRA, a pension, whatever the case may be. If they had availability to access that money, prior to its predetermined stated case, then that's what they probably would do. So, you start looking at the fact that, you've got folks that have become disabled, don't have a disability plan in place, don't have a plan, period, and how are they able to afford to continue the lifestyle? And that is starting to tap into some instruments that were set up and funded for a different reason other than disability income itself. So again, we want to make sure that our clients, our prospects understand what's at risk here, and position from a financial standpoint, position disability income as being a very, very important and integral part of any financial plan, of any estate plan, whatever the case may be. Well, during a disability, regular expenses continue. Unfortunately, because you're not working and not drawing a paycheck doesn't mean that your outside expenses cease at the same time, because they don't. We all know that's not the case. The mortgage company is going to still expect that check every month, or, the rent check has to go in. Car payments need to be made. Utilities have to, continue to be funded and paid. There's just an awful lot of just normal expenses that happen on a month-to-month basis. And just because a disability is in the picture doesn't necessarily mean that these things are going to stop. As a matter of fact, in many cases, you're going to wind up having additional expenses for that client, for that prospect, as a result of that disability, such as child care, stay-at-home spouse. These two put together brings up an interesting conversation with clients, and that is that if you have a client who has a stay-at-home spouse that's providing child care for their children, what happens if the primary breadwinner now becomes disabled, can't work, isn't drawing a paycheck? What effect is that going to have on that stay-at-home spouse? All of a sudden, that stay-at-home spouse is doing double duty. That stay-at-home spouse is still providing daycare or child care for the children, but now it's becoming the full-time caregiver for the person that became disabled. That's a huge issue, pretty substantial, especially for those stay-at-home spouses. Also keep in mind that a couple of the carriers that financial brokerage represents in the disability income marketplace have disability income for stay-at-home spouses. Used to be that the only way you could get disability income is if you could provide the company with documentation that you had an income. Well, a stay-at-home spouse doesn't have an income. And I'm glad to see that some of these carriers have come to the realization, the value proposition that that stay-at-home spouse brings to the equation, brings to that family unit. So you can provide disability coverage. It's going to be a minimum amount of coverage, but the fact is that you can provide disability income coverage for that stay-at-home spouse, even though she's not drawing or earning a set amount from a paycheck standpoint. Student loan payments. We all know that student loans are a big part of most of the folks that we deal with today. Many of them are going to have student loans for years to come. Unfortunately, because a disability occurs, the student loan company, the government, the lender, whoever it may have been, is still going to require, still going to be expecting to have those loan payments paid. Now, you may be able to get a deferment for 6 months or maybe even a little bit longer, but at some point, those payments are going to come due, and you're going to have to continue to make them. You have to figure out a way, how am I going to be able to afford it? How am I going to be able to, to pay for this? Insurance premiums. That's the last thing you want to let, go as a result of a disability is your insurance. You don't want to put yourself in another awkward position of not only not having disability protection, but now you looking at having to drop insurance because you can't afford to keep it because there's not an income that's coming in. And most people don't give a second thought to saving for retirement as a result of a disability. Keep in mind that if you are working or your client is working for an employer and the client is contributing a set percentage of their paycheck every pay period into their 401k or into their IRA, whatever the case may be, and the company is matching a portion of that, if that person becomes disabled, they're no longer contributing to that 401k or to that savings plan, so that ceases, and the employer's portion that they were also matching ceases as well, because they're matching what the employee puts in. If the employee's not putting anything in, the employer's not matching, so it's kind of a catch-22. Want to keep that in mind. If your client wants to continue to have their savings funded, then they need to make sure that they have disability income protection in place to protect them and prevent just a complete standstill as a result of that savings program. This is another great way to position disability income with a prospect. And this is, which plan would you prefer? I like to look at this as two employers. You got employer A, employer B. Plan A, Plan B. This is a fairly sought-after individual. He has two job offers. One, the employer tells him he's going to pay him $100,000 a year gross income if he's working for his company, and that's before taxes. Unfortunately, if he became disabled and wasn't able to work, there is no more income that's going to come in. We're going to give it all to you on the front end. Second employer says, we're also going to pay you $100,000, but we're only going to give you 98.6 of it. We're going to hold back $1,400 so that you can buy a disability plan that in the event that you become disabled, that disability plan will continue to pay 60% or $60,000 of your gross income. Which plan do you think the employee is going to opt for? I think most of the smart ones will probably go with Plan B. That $1,400 isn't going to make a world of difference when you look at it when it's spread out over 26 pay periods or 12 pay periods. The fact is that a little bit of downsizing on that gross income and have that money offset towards a disability individual plan makes all the sense in the world. So ask that prospect, what plan would you rather have? Great way to position disability income from a visual standpoint so that that prospect can see how disability works and what it's actually worth. Well, so let's look at what the client's perspective is and what are their priorities. I guarantee you disability income is not a priority in their mind. It really isn't. Most of them don't even know that it's available, number one, and number two, they don't know how it works. So let's look at what they're thinking are their priorities in life. Okay, a daily cup of premium store-bought coffee from a Starbucks or Scooters or whatever the local coffee outlet in your city is. What's that actually winding up costing that prospect each month? Date night. You go on a date once a week, 4 nights a month. What's that actually costing? Cable service, high-speed internet, and smartphones. You look at all of that. These are all kind of, a sundry sort of things that we all do. We all do it on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. What are we actually paying for these services? Well, let's break it down to what you have to compete against when it comes to the consumer's dollar. That store-bought coffee from Starbucks. And I used a very conservative figure here at $4 a day. 20 work days in a month. That's $80 that prospect probably is spending, and maybe even more, for that cup of coffee, every day. Date night. You do it 4 times a month, anywhere from $30 to $50, and that's probably on the very conservative side. That's $120 to $200 a month that they're spending for date night. Cable and satellite service, $75 to $125. High-speed internet, $45 to $65. And then our smartphones, $75 to $150, which we all think we can't live without. I often question, when it comes to smartphones, who's the one that's smart here? Is it the carriers that are providing the service and charging these exorbitant fees? Or are we the smart ones because of the particular plan that we bought? I looked at this last fall because I hadn't looked at my plan for my smartphone for a number of years. Both my wife and I have the iPhone 6, and when I got her phone just before Christmas, I sat down with our phone carrier and I said, I haven't really looked at this in recent time. Is there a different plan that would make more sense based upon my usage that I maybe might reduce my monthly bill a little bit? And so they took a look at it and they said, well, the way you use your iPhone and the number of texts and all of that sort of thing, there really is a better plan. You haven't updated your plan in 12 years. Shame on me. They re-looked at it, came up with a plan. I went from $165 a month that I was paying for our phone bill for cell phone usage down to $95. I saved $75 by just asking the question. The reason why I bring it up is there anything in there in those 5 that maybe your prospect could cut back a little bit on? Instead of 5 times a week for coffee, maybe they do it 3 times. Instead of 4 date nights a month, maybe they do 2 or 3. They can cut back on smartphone by maybe looking at a different plan. There's always dollars that are there what you have to do is you have to expose it for them. You have to show them where that money can come from, giving them ideas. I'll tell you, agents and producers and professional folks in the insurance business that present this way and show their prospect ways that they can pay for this without increasing their out-of-pocket costs, those are going to be the agents that are going to win these cases. That's where the value comes from. That's what you bring to the table when you sit down and talk with a client. These are great little opportunities, and you may think of other ones that come to mind as well. These are kind of common things that I think all of us do on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. Maybe by just scaling back a little bit, not eliminating it, just scale back a little bit. You can pick up $20 here or $50 there. Now all of a sudden, you can afford the disability plan without changing your lifestyle, without adding additional expenses to your monthly out-of-pocket costs. Well, not all risks are this easy to spot. We had a huge hailstorm come through our part of the world here 2 years ago, and everybody in our neighborhood wound up having to have their roofs replaced. And we have a pretty steep pitch to our roof. And I'll tell you what, that's not a job I'd do. Just like this guy here, his feet and his ankles have got to ache by the end of the day. But approximately 95% of all disabilities are not caused by accidents or injuries. Most people think that that's where disabilities occur. Well, I don't have a risky job, that prospect says. I sat at a desk all day. You have a huge, huge risk from an illness and a sickness standpoint than you ever would from an accident or an injury. 95% of all disabilities that occur in America today are the result of an illness or a sickness, not an accident or an injury. I can also tell you that when you start looking at some of the statistics when it comes to disability that are occurring in America today, and again, 95% of them, sickness and illness, most people that have a disability as a result of an accident or an injury recover from it fairly well, fairly soon, and move back on to their lifestyle without much of a distraction, without much of a downtime. It's the sicknesses and the illnesses that we see that wind up being lengthy claims, lengthy times that the people are off of work. Such things as heart attacks and strokes and Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis that can lay dormant for years and all of a sudden rear its ugly head. Those are the kinds of things that we're talking about here. People that have severe cases of colitis are unable to work. They can't concentrate because of the immense pain associated with it. Those are the kinds of things that disability income protection will wind up protecting that client and prevent that client from having those kinds of issues from a financial standpoint affect their lives and affect their families' lives as well. A disability can happen at any age. 1 in 4 of today's 20-year-olds are going to become disabled before reaching the age of 67. 1 out of 4 20-year-olds will have a disability before they retire. That's pretty significant. According to The Economist, who analyzed the Labor Department data from 2010 to 2013, 6.6 million people exited the workforce during that period of time, and 28% of them exited because of a disability. Huge issue today, up significantly from what it was in 2007 to 2010. But part of the story that doesn't get told about this statistic has a lot to do with the economic downturn and the recession that occurred beginning in 2007. As many of you remember, unemployment insurance was available for people that were displaced and lost their jobs. Federal government stepped in and increased those unemployment benefits all the way out to 92 weeks. Well, by the time these folks got to about 2013, most of those people, as far as the early unemployment folks, had run out of their 92 weeks of unemployment. Not able to find jobs. Still haven't been able to find jobs. So they looked for the next best program that the federal government offered, and that was Social Security disability. 2 of the most common disability claims for Social Security disability, one is mental and nervous disorders, and the second one deals with the person's back. Both of them difficult to diagnose by a healthcare practitioner saying, no, they don't have this problem. Unfortunately, all of the scans and the MRIs and all of that very well may show that the person on paper, on film, is okay, but the fact is that they're still complaining about pain or another issue if it's a mental nervous disorder. Hard for them to say, no, this is not happening. So they saw a huge uptick in Social Security disability claims. Not so much Social Security disability payments, but Social Security disability claims. The whole issue with Social Security disability is another animal altogether. Most people don't understand how Social Security works when it comes to disability and actually being approved for Social Security disability payments and coverage. The difference between Social Security disability and an individual plan, such as one of the insurance carriers that we work with, is that Social Security disability says that you have to be totally disabled, unable to perform any job, any function. In other words, you're totally disabled. Whereas with an insurance company, they have different takes on it, and they're not talking about totally disabled and unable to perform any function of any job. It may be that it's disability that's specific to your particular occupation or specific to your particular job duties. Big difference when you look at what Social Security provides. The other thing to keep in mind when a client or a prospect says, I don't need to look at disability income protection because I'm covered by Social Security. They take money out of my paycheck every 2 weeks or every month, whatever the case may be. The fact is that they need to understand how Social Security disability works. 75% of all Social Security disability claims are initially denied. 75% are denied. Of those that are appealed after that initial denial, 50% of them are denied ultimately of receiving any benefits or any payments from Social Security disability. Again, it's a safety net for those people that are really, truly disabled and unable to perform any job or any function. If you were a real estate agent and you became disabled and you applied for Social Security disability, Social Security would come back and say, yeah, you're probably disabled from the standpoint of not being able to show houses because you're no longer mobile because of that disability. But you know what? You can still talk on the phone. You're still employable. You can be a telemarketer. You can work for the real estate office and follow up on leads on the phone. That's how that process works. So understanding the Social Security disability is not the catch-all that unfortunately some people think it is, because of the fact that they have severe restrictions and regulations associated with that. Are you fully protected? This really comes down to some of the things that we hear when we talk to prospects about disability and disability income protection, and that is it relates back to they think that they're covered at work. Well, it's really interesting to note that of employers nationally across the country today, less than 40% of employers provide long-term disability protection. Many of them provide a short-term plan that'll last for 3 months or 6 months or something like that. But from a long-term disability standpoint, less than 40% of them are providing any kind of protection for their employees. You probably make full use of your paycheck. Your clients do, you and I do, pay for things like mortgages and groceries and car payments and so on. All of the things that our family come to enjoy and expect from that standpoint. If you have an illness or an injury that prevents you from working and you have group long-term disability, it may only protect or replace 60% of that person's income. 60%. If you have a prospect that makes $100,000 a year, how long is that family going to be able to live on $60,000? That's a big hole that has to be filled. It's got to come from someplace. And unfortunately, the guy can't go out and get another job if he's disabled. The other thing that most people don't recognize and realize is that with disability income protection that's provided through an employer and the employer is paying the premium, guess what the benefits are going to be? The benefits are going to be taxable on the backside when they're paid out to the employee as far as benefits. The government's got to get their money someplace. They're either going to get it on the front end or they're going to get it on the back end. And also keep in mind that if the employer provides the coverage and the employee is paying the premium, and he's paying with pre-tax dollars, the benefits are probably going to be taxed on the back end as well. Again, if there's no taxes on the front end of that money, then there's going to be taxes on the back end. So when you're talking about taxes on the back end, it takes that 60% that the disability company is going to be paying the disabled worker, reducing it even further, probably in the 40% range at that point. I used a very simple 20% tax bracket, and it dropped it down to 40%. That's huge. That's now $40,000 of $100,000 a year income that's being replaced with disability protection. How long is your client going to be able to live at that? So again, look at the question about disability income and the statement from that prospect that he has his coverage at work. Look at it like an onion. Peel it back a little bit. Start asking some drill down questions. First of all, how much of your income is protected percentage-wise? Number two, is the employer providing the plan through work? Number three, is the employer paying the premium through work on a pre-tax basis, or are you paying that premium on a pre-tax basis? All comes into the bottom line here as to what the person's going to net, how much money is going to be in that check every month when that disability payment is made. It really opens up the eyes of a prospect that's looking at you and saying, I have my coverage at work, I don't need to have this discussion. Ask some drill downs. Peel the onion back just a little bit. You may find that there's a lot more interest as a result of doing that. When you expose that, you will be doing something that most insurance producers don't do. When they bring up the question of disability income and the client says, I have it at work, what's the first tendency that all of us want to do? Back up, close the book on that one, and open up another book that maybe we have a better chance of selling something to that prospect. Don't do that. Drill down just a little bit. You'll find that you'll get a lot of positive responses back from those folks when they realize what their long-term disability actually is, and number two, how much it's protection as far as the percentage goes, and number three, are those benefits going to be taxable on the back end? That's a good. With many of them, it's a huge eye-opening experience when you start looking at it. Now, I position and built this as 10 reasons not to buy disability income protection. Yeah, we could have put it up there as 10 reasons to buy, but I wanted 10 reasons not to buy because these are the common things that you all are going to run into on a day-to-day basis when you start having conversations about disability income. I have coverage through work, that prospect says. Well, now you've got a little bit more ammunition of how to answer that question and come back to where you can open up that prospect's eyes just a little bit. Well, Social Security will take care of me, right? Again, you got a little bit more information. And if you want some quantified data, go to socialsecurity.gov and just get onto the disability income portion of that website. They've got great stories in there about disability. They've got great data and statistics. I've never been one to, really overpower a client or a prospect with a lot of data and a lot of statistics, because then you wind up with deer in the headlights. But the reality of it is you got to have some in order to be able to make a valid point. It's a great way to position yourself. It also shows that you've done a little bit of homework as far as how you're presenting disability protection. It won't happen to me. I plan to stay healthy. Kind of a silly statement, isn't it? It really is. Well, I answered that kind of with a silly statement myself, and that is that Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, I have no idea whether you're going to need this or not. My crystal ball, unfortunately, isn't any clearer than yours. But why don't we have a discussion about protecting your insurability? I'm not having a discussion about writing long-term disability. I'm going to have a discussion about protecting your insurability. And how do we do that? We do that with an application. That's the reality of it. It costs too much. Well, if in your fact find that you did with the client, if you're doing that, the client says that they could afford $100 a month if you could put a plan together for disability income that would meet their needs, and you came back with a plan in order to meet the needs that cost them $225, what are the chances that you're going to place that case? Probably not real good. You got to listen to what the client or the prospect says. Not necessarily that the policy or the plan that you put in place is going to be the end all for what they need, because in many cases it isn't. But you know what? I believe, and have for 35 years in this business, that a little bit of protection is better than a whole lot of nothing. And that's the reality that's here. You can build a plan with maybe a small amount, meets their minimal amount of needs currently today. It gives them something that they can count on. And then you build into that plan opportunities to increase the coverage at set times later down the road without that client proving that they're insurable. They're known as future purchase options in disability income. So at set points in time, that client's going to have the opportunity to buy additional disability protection if their income is growing without proving to the insurance company that they're insurable. What a great way to design a plan and help clients as you build insurance plans with them as they age through life. My financial needs change so fast, what policy could ever keep up with that? And number 6 kind of goes right along with that. I want a policy that keeps pace with my income without additional underwriting. Again, right back to my previous statement, you can build a plan that will keep pace with that income, that as his income increases, they'll make offers to buy additional protection. That's the value. You can build these plans that are affordable today, and will be affordable and will have real quality to them later down the road. I would have to be totally disabled to receive benefits, right? No, you do not have to be totally disabled. That's why we have benefits and riders that you can put on plans that will cover partial disability, residual disability benefits. That's the value that's here. You can have a plan put in place that if they have a loss of income up to 20%, the disability plan will make up the difference for them. Basically, it makes them whole. That's the value that you bring to the table. And once you understand residual benefits and understand partial disability riders that you can place on plans, you will have more knowledge about disability income than probably 90% of the agents that are out there, whether they're talking disability or not. My family and friends will help me out. Yeah, you're right. They probably will, as would be the case with almost all of us. Our family and our friends, because they love us and they want to help as much as they can, they'll do it. But the real question comes, for how long? How long will family and friends be able to sustain that immense amount of effort and help that's going to be needed? And at one point in time, that very well may run out. Then what are you going to do? Client says, or the prospect says, I can always buy coverage later. Yeah, you can. What are 2 misconceptions about buying coverage later? They're twofold. One is the older you get, the more expensive it's going to be, because every year that you're an age a year older, the premium coming into the plan is going to be just a little bit higher, and so on. The real issue here is that you may not be able to qualify for it later because of health issues and health concerns. Why don't we talk about protecting your insurability now with a small plan to get started with something that we can build on as we go through life? I can rely on my savings. Well, let's go back to that $100,000 a year income that we talked about here just a little earlier. What amount of savings would a person need to have in place to protect that $100,000 a year income? Relying upon their savings for that? The average claim on long-term disability is 2.3 years. That's $230,000 that prospect would have to have saved and set aside for a disability. How many people do you know? How many people do I know that have that kind of money set aside? Very few of them ever do. They may be thinking that their savings is their 401k or their IRA or whatever the case may be. But you know what? That money was set aside for a different reason, not for disability. And now all of a sudden we're tapping into it for disability, then the original reason falls to the wayside as well. So it's kind of a catch-22 again for them. Let's make sure that they understand what's at stake here and what you bring to the table that you can help them with. So let's unlock some future sales opportunities by developing a disability income protection strategy. Those 10 reasons that people don't buy, I want you to take a look at those. And I want each one of you to come up with 3 strategies that you can use, or maybe in the next couple of weeks you actually develop those and employ those and go out and use them. let's see who can come up with the best strategies. When we get back together in February for our next DI discussion, be a different topic, there might even be some cash involved when we meet again next month for those that come up with the best strategies for placing and talking about disability income protection. You can use the 10 that we had, but I'm sure that you can come up with a whole lot more than that as far as strategies and reasons why you need to be having those conversations with prospects and clients about disability and protecting their income. In the 30 minutes or so of this presentation, 1,500 new disabilities occurred in America. Hard to believe, isn't it? If you live in the part of the country that was blasted by the huge snowmageddon this past weekend, I know there are a few on the phone that are in that part of the country. Unfortunately, there were accidents that occurred as a result of it, and there's new disabilities that happen. Are your prospects and your clients prepared to become part of this statistic? Every 1.2 seconds, someone in America suffers a disability. Wintertime, probably a little bit quicker. But again, let's just make sure that our family, our friends, our prospects, our clients are in the best possible position to be prepared for this potential risk. Now, who can you sell with Western Southern Agency through financial brokerage? You have 4 choices when it comes to disability income protection. Assurity Life, they're a company out of Lincoln, Nebraska. Illinois Mutual in Peoria, Illinois. The Principal Financial Group in Des Moines. And of course, Mutual of Omaha in Omaha. Each one of these 4 carriers has a little different sweet spot, as we call them, when it comes to where does their product line fit the best. It might be the income area. It might be the occupation of the individual. It might be the job functions within that particular occupational class. That's the value that we bring to the table as a distribution partner with Western Southern, that when you have a need to quote a disability income plan, let us know. Fill out the quote request form that I'm going to be sending to your agency manager for distribution. It asks all of the basic information about that prospect, about that client. Gives us the opportunity to build a plan that will best fit based upon that person's income, based on their occupation, based upon their job duties within that occupation, and then also maybe some of the health issues affecting that particular individual. Disability income is a little bit different than a lot of other health products or products that are offered today, and that is that disability is not a product that it's either all or nothing when it comes to a person's insurability. You may have an individual that has a bum left knee, for instance, and it's not been surgically corrected, although the doctor's been kind of on him about getting that surgery and getting that knee fixed, and he applies for disability income. Well, the disability carrier may come back and say, you know what, we'll insure you for anything and everything except that left knee. Until that left knee is fixed, you're on your own when it comes to that. But if that person then gets that left knee fixed, has a full recovery and is released from the doctor, we can go back to the insurance company and say, hey, we'd like to have that exclusion eliminated from the plan. And in many, many cases, that's exactly what happens. You have a reduction in premium in some cases, and you now have full coverage for anything and everything. So if there's a health risk that's out there that can be corrected, there may be an exclusion that the company would offer. It's an offer is what it amounts to. That's where we're going to be able to help you. Assurity, great company when it comes to the blue collar market and even into some of the gray collar arena. We find them fantastic in that particular environment. Illinois Mutual last year in 2015 picked 10 occupation classes and kind of sharpened their pencil about it. Number one, they moved the majority of them up a rate class, which gave you a better rate for the client, number one. And number two, they reduced the rates that they charge because they wanted to focus on those 10 occupation classes. Many of them are in the blue collar to the gray collar arena, such as carpenters and electricians and plumbers, beauty and barber, beauty hair design and barber shops, nurses. Those are all occupational classes that they really wanted to focus in. And again, we're going to be able to help you pick the right fit for the particular client that you're looking at. Principal does an absolute excellent job when it comes to higher income wage earners, especially in the upper white-collar executive marketplace, doctors, lawyers, architects, engineers, that sort of thing. We find that Principal is very, very competitive in that particular space. And then Mutual of Omaha. Mutual has two unique things with their product that we really like and I think fit very well with the Western and Southern agency. Number one, Mutual is the only company of the four that offers a true short-term disability product. What I mean by that, you can buy a plan for as little as 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, whatever the case may be, with very small elimination periods. Where would that come into play? Might be that the person's transitioning from one job to another and needs that protection because they couldn't take their disability plan from their old employer with them. That might be one scenario. Might be a situation where they have a long-term disability plan at work, but maybe they have a 6-month wait before any benefits are going to be paid. You can plug in a short-term 6-month disability plan to meet that difference, to meet that gap, that risk that's out there. That's where that will fit. And that's where our marketing staff will be able to help you. Be able to put the plan with the prospect that's going to fit the best, it's going to make the most sense, based on income, based on occupation, based on job duties, based on health, whatever the case may be. The three folks that you're seeing on the screen right now, these are the folks that work with Western and Southern each and every day. That's myself on the left. You have Michelle Deharsh, one of our marketing managers. Many of you may have already spoken with Michelle, may have worked with her regarding some disability quotes and requests. Michelle does a great job, very conscientious about following up and making sure that you've got everything that you need to make your job as easy as possible. Tim Dreer. Tim is an absolute expert when it comes to the health markets themselves. Tim's been in the business for about 18 years. Excellent opportunity to work with him. Tim does a lot of the webinars that you'll probably hear in the future. Listening to Tim do a webinar, and I tease him a little bit about it, is like listening to your dad have a conversation with you. He's very down to earth, very easygoing. I think you'll really enjoy that as we move forward and do additional webinars in the future. Just so that you know what's going to be coming, and so you can kind of plan and prepare for it. Again, I'll be sending to the agency managers a copy of this presentation, as well as a copy of the actual recording of the webinar itself. There will also be just had one of those brain lapses that occurs. The quote request form for disability income. It's a great one to be able to, when you fill it out, it gives all of the pertinent information about your prospect or about your client. And by all means, let's use those. It's a great tool. It's an easy way to converse with us so that we understand what it is exactly that you're looking for. Again, I want to remind the agency managers to make sure that you get those sign-in rosters back to me, and so that we can begin our follow-up with each and every one of the agents that attended the webinars today. Ordinarily, we open up the phone lines at this point to answer any questions, but I got to tell you, not very practical today because we have 19 Western and Southern offices on this call, and I'm afraid that if I open up the phone lines, I'm going to have a free-for-all. So you will have our email addresses are here along with our phone numbers. If, in fact, if you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to one of us and let us help you with any questions that you may have. We look forward to working with you in the future. The month of February is going to be devoted to Illinois Mutual, the company and their products. We will have folks from Illinois Mutual that will actually be presenting on those webinars, so make sure that when that announcement and the invite comes out that you get your agency registered and signed up for that as well. With that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I wish each and every one of you a great week of success. Happy selling. For those folks on the East Coast, I hope you get dug out soon so that you can all get back to work. Thank you for attending, and have a great rest of the week. Thank you.